Okay, when you begin centering the pot, centering the clay, what we want to do is go right down to the bottom of the wheel so that you won't have a floor. So it's important when you add a slab for the bottom of the pot to have this curved bottom right in here where your wall begins, because then we won't have to add a coil when we add the slab floor. Okay, so as I'm pulling up this, I want to form this lid seat right away, and I want to make sure I save enough clay for doing this right up at the top. Now, I let this set up for maybe 20 minutes or so, just to get it so it won't collapse. So now I'm getting ready to form a rectangle just by altering the shape. And then I'm going to give it a little angle. And if I push these corners in down at the bottom, and then you want to line it up with what you do on top. It seems to give it a lot more support when you push those corners in at the bottom. So to put the floor onto the baking dish, I have marked it where in place and scored and slipped it. So now I will place the baking dish. Now I'm not going to score underneath this because it gets kind of cumbersome. But I think just the scoring on the bottom is enough. But when I put it down, I kind of put it down with some force so that it will have a good connection with the slab bottom. Now this is where the curved bottom is important, because now all I need to do is to bond that curved piece of clay into this slab floor. And it makes it so easy. Sometimes where the corners are pushed out, I might add a little piece of clay there so it won't be so hard again to clean. Okay, so after I have bonded the baker to the slab floor, I'm going to run this small Michael Sherrill rib around it. And this just works so great because this corner fits right in that curve, and then it smooths everything out and makes a real nice bottom. Before I cut this outside here, I want to seal this up right along where the slab makes this. So I'm just going to run a tool around it to seal that crack up. Then I'm going to come back and cut this about 1/4 inch from the thrown baker. And now this is very easy. Just take an angled tool and come back and bond that excess clay. Now that's the reason it's extra, because now it will come up over that edge and seal everything. Sometimes I like that ragged edge. Sometimes I will come back and just blend all that in, which leaves you a little bit cleaner look. And at the very end, I will just cut around the bottom of it. Now we're ready to make the altered lid that will drop down into the baking dish. So to do that, I need to make a pattern of the slab. And what I'm going to do is just to paint India ink around this rim. So the India ink, of course, will burn out in your bisque. You don't need to worry about it. I just use regular newspaper and drop it so it takes the imprint of the India ink. And this is how you're going to get the exact shape. Of course, it's the reverse. It's a mirror image, so that's gonna, you can't, this side's gonna be this side, but it still works. Now I'm gonna cut this pattern out. You can see the pattern I've drawn here. And what I found out over the several hundred of these I've made is usually from end to end, I will cut to the inside of that line, and on the sides where it kind of flares out, I cut more to the outside, just to give yourself a little more width where it spreads out. So you can see I'm even cutting outside the ending incline, and then coming in now more on the inside, just to save you much stress. And I've also marked it, so I know that this end will go here on this side. You can see the mark there. So the slab that will be dropped in this for the lid, I usually let this set up. It shouldn't be soft or it will drop inside the lid, inside the baker. So I let it set up slightly. It needs to have some give, but not real soft. Okay, then we'll mark the slab. There's your notch there. I'm going to mark that right there. Want some way to pull that slab out. So I just lay a little piece of plastic, and you want to make sure it's wide enough that you can get it out and hold it. So I wouldn't cut it right up to the edge. Give yourself a little margin. And I'm going to flip it over and try to it should fall right in there, and it is. You see how it's falling right in? Right in there. Now, if it were too soft, or even if this, the baking dish needs to be slightly firmer. If it were too soft on either this lid or the baking dish, you couldn't press that and get it firm. Now, sometimes, like right now, it doesn't exactly fit, so I'm just going to shave this down slightly. And I'm going to use a short enough tool that I can get in there. Sometimes they'll just fall right in. This will be fine. So also, depending on how high you want your lid, once you turn it over, I can stretch this to make it more dome-like. If you wanted it flatter, then you would pull your plastic to get it flat. And I'm pressing it so that it will meet the edge of the baking dish, the rim. I want it to go right up to the edge. It's got to fit snugly in there. So by doing this, you're also making a nice place for the glaze to stop. It's a nice definition line for that glaze. Okay, so I have dropped the lid into the altered baking dish, and this is important that you let this set up, certainly so that lid can still move a little bit, but it definitely has to be firmer before we pull it out. And this, you can see, is a reason now for the extra plastic. So I'm just going to lift this lid out. Okay, and turn it over. I'll pull the plastic off. And this is the mark here and mark here, so I'll know to put it back and line it up. But I'll have to keep the plastic back on the pot, so again I can lift it out when it's dry. Now you might have a little crackle right in here from the plastic, the way it wads up, but it can be smoothed out very easily. So Sometimes I'll smooth it before I lay it back in. Now what's nice about the lid seat has made this, again, this definition line on the lid, which I think adds to the form of the piece. Okay, so now we'll just try to gently lay it back into. Now, if it's soft enough and has a little give, then you can kind of manipulate it, which you will need to do. And that's why it's important to let it dry just a bit. Now, I want to push it so that it comes right out to the edge. And I also want to push it so that it lies flat onto the lid seat. If it didn't lie flat, then it would be a wobbly lid. And often what I'll do is kind of put my hands and form it, and I'm pushing it up to the center, just slightly, so that you get this nice dome shape in the center. So then I might let it dry just a bit, and we're going to add handles on the sides and a handle for the lid. I've just cut a handle here. This will be a pulled handle, and made a little V, not a V, but a curved cut. And so this is important to attach it really well, since these baking dishes will be filled with food. So you want to get a real good attachment. I'm going to really mash it in there. Now you could smooth this out if you wanted. I kind of like that edge to show on mine because I like to see the glaze breaking. And underneath, I'm going to kind of bond it in to make sure I've got a good connection there. So I use 2 fingers and just attachment. Okay, we've attached the handles on the side, and now I'm going to put a handle on the lid. I've already marked it where the center is. This is a pulled handle, and then I cut it just to get kind of a strap handle. I think this lid's a little bit soft, but usually what I do is manipulate this handle quite a bit. I'll even come back here and backfill this area underneath here so that you get a really nice curvilinear negative space in here, but we probably won't do it for this taping since it's pretty time consuming. Okay, so now we have everything attached, and I would usually, in my studio, I would let this set up even overnight. Then this is firm enough to actually lift out of the baking dish. And at that point, I would probably take this edge and shave it slightly with a rasping tool, and then it should fit back into the baking dish nicely. I also mark the piece. Let me do it on this end, so I'll know where to put the lid back if you're using it. It's finished, so I have 2 identical marks. Kind of codes it.